Good morning and thank you to everybody for joining us for this MSM Smrt English eSummit 2020 live webinar on setting up virtual English language academies using Smrt English. This is the second of our webinar series on Smrt English eSummit 2020 live, and stay tuned for more exciting topics of discussion in the coming days. I see a lot of attendees on the process of joining in. On behalf of all of us in Smrt English, I hope you, your families, and your colleagues are all safe and well. All of humanity is locked into this invisible and unprecedented pandemic, which has abundantly disrupted the education sector in India. Institutions, students, parents, and all related academies are busy formalizing their renewed short, medium, and long-term strategies to adopt to the sudden shift occurred due to COVID-19. My name is Jim George, Manager, India overseeing Smrt English in India, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm excited and delighted to introduce today's presenters, Mr. Zach Taylor and Elena Plummer. Zach is the Chief Marketing Officer at Smrt English, and Elena is the teacher trainer at Smrt English. Thanks, Zach and Elena, for joining this exciting webinar. Before I hand over the mic to Zach, I'll run through the housekeeping requirements that are needed for today's presentation and the Zoom webinar platform. So what's today's agenda for the webinar? International students must meet a number of requirements in order to study in Canada, USA, UK, and any English-speaking country. However, one of the most important is English proficiency. As most courses at Canadian universities and colleges are taught in English, in order to gain admission, students must provide proof that they have a good understanding of English language. It can be in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. If you have the latest technology-driven solution at your doorstep, who would not want to know more about it? You will hear how Smrt English can be a game changer for agents and academies to nurture their students from their offices and make them competent to write tests like IELTS or TOEFL, etc., and also help them while they are in Canada to talk to other students or teachers, etc., in the way that can be also they can understand what exactly is being spoken. So as a reminder, everyone is currently muted, and will encourage you to type in your questions and comments throughout the presentation, the Q&A session present in the control panel. Later on in the presentation, we'll have a brief moment for Q&A, at which point you'll also be encouraged to type in your questions. In case you're facing any technical issues, please feel free to drop in a message in the chat box. We will also be having a polling session during the webinar, so all of our attendees will have to be attentive during the presentation. We'll expect your active participation during these polls. This webinar is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel in the coming days ahead. For those who have just joined in, welcome to today's Smrt English India eSummit 2020 live webinar on setting up virtual English language academies using Smrt English. So without further ado, let's kickstart things off by welcoming our presenters, Zach and Elena. Zach, over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, as Jim said, my name's Zach Taylor. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Smrt English. We started this company about 10 years ago. We were tasked at the time of updating the way we were teaching English in a brick and mortar school. As Jim said, today's seminar is going to be about how to set up a virtual English language academy. This is a new thing. A lot of us are either starting off fresh or we're transitioning from a brick and mortar to a virtual English language academy. I think there's a couple really important things to start off with as a school owner when you're looking at setting this up. The first thing is your conferencing tool, and then a learning management system to operate your school with. I'm sure everybody knows we're in a Zoom call. Zoom's kind of taken over everything when it comes to conferencing tools. That's a great one, no problem. There's Google Meets, there's Microsoft Teams, there's Adobe Connect, there's Whereby. There's a ton of different ones out there. If you're a little bit more old school, you could even use Skype. But it all is what your school or your operations want to run the school on. I'm a little partial to Google. I like Google. It's a great education company, but they did slip a little bit with the COVID stuff. Zoom jumped up ahead. They do some really neat features. When you're looking at this, the programs work everywhere in the world. It's on your phone and apps and stuff. So there's kind of 3 or 4 really key things that you want to look at. It's the pricing, it's the ease of use, and it's the general feel. You guys could even set it up that each teacher uses their own conferencing tool if they're more comfortable with one. My personal feeling is it's nice to have one for all the teachers so that they can share different tools and figure out little tweaks that they can do to themselves in those classrooms. The next is your learning management system. So this is really important because you need to be able to control all these people that you won't possibly see in a physical face-to-face situation. So you're going to want to be able to say, you know, go and log in. I can count the number of users. I can create a class for a teacher. I can put students in that class. All those things that you used to do in the physical face-to-face, you need to now reproduce in this virtual world. Things like counting attendance, generating reports so that you can give an attendance report to maybe a mom and a dad, an uncle or something like that and say, oh, okay, you know what, Jim's got great attendance. He's been in every one of my virtual classes. He's doing really well. Oh, Elena's not in those classes. She's not doing so well. You want to have that proof so that you can track what your students are doing and a little bit of what the teachers are doing as well. Here's what classes look like in Smrt. This is a teacher's profile. You can see that I have 4 classes that are set up. They're different levels. They're at different times. They could be on different days of the week. That is completely up to the school and how they would like to run their operations. Elaine and I have been doing these virtual meetings for the last 5 months or so. And what we've seen is that some schools teach 1 hour a day. Some schools are teaching 3 hours a day. Other schools are doing 1 hour a week. That is all dependent on how you want to set up the structure of your school and what you're able to ask your teachers to be able to teach at their home offices or if they're coming into the school. Jim mentioned to me just before the meeting that India is kind of coming back to a normal state June 1st. So we're going to see another new normal here of what and where the teachers are actually going to be teaching from. You have full control in Smrt. You can create your class. You can take attendance. You can, sorry, I'm going to go back 1 slide here. You can add and remove students. Maybe that student there, Gloria, didn't pay the tuition for this week or this month. Well, you take her out and she doesn't have access to the curriculum, nor does she have access to the meeting links and have access to your teachers. Just like they would in a regular class, you can kind of block them and collect their money at the door if you need to. That full control is really important to be able to see what's going on to make sure that your business is running at its full potential. The attendance feature that I alluded to before is really easy to use. It's really intuitive. You can see the green rectangles are all the students that I have logged in the class right now. The other ones are late. I click the attendance button. It goes live into the database. It's populated right away. The students can see their attendance. The teachers can see it. The administrators can see it. So it's very transparent when it comes to all of that. Of course, reports. We want to be able to see the attendance of Elena's class. Are all the students showing up every day or some of them not showing up? This is a little bit of an insight from an administrator's role to see how is that teacher doing? Are they doing the best job in this virtual class? Or do I need to step in and ask them how it's going? Are they having any frustrations? I noticed that half of your students aren't coming half of the time. They really should be in class. What's going on? Are they having problems? It gets into the whole wellness thing. Everybody's under a lot of pressure right now. We're working from very strange places, you know, and it's not the regular normal. So we have to work with them and be able to help them find out, okay, what's going on in your virtual class? How can we help your students succeed and reach their goals? Those goals could vary from entering into pathways into Canada. Maybe they want to get a better job in India, whatever it might be. This is where the insights come from. If it's an attendance report, if it's the courses that we're running, if it's the classes we're running, what's the most popular one and what are the students asking for? So it gives us a nice little peek behind the curtain, if you will. Implementation. this is where Elena takes over most of the talking with the presentations we do, but with also the teachers around the world. So implementation goes into these two sections, teacher training and the course material. Right now, Smrt has 4 different companies. We have a company in India, Mexico, China, and Brazil, as well as the parent company that's here in Canada. So Elena works with not only our teacher trainers in each one of our sub offices, but she works with all the teachers around the world, making sure that they're comfortable bringing technology, bringing this virtual element into their teaching styles. I'll pass it over to Elena for a few moments.
Thank you. So here we go with the teacher training. With teacher training, it's always important to kind of focus first and foremost on your own company standards. So deciding what language qualifications are for your institution. So if that is a certain standard or TOEFL or IELTS score that your teachers need to have, if it is a language certification, if it is a college degree plus a language certification, that really depends on your standardization for your own school, and deciding that beforehand is a very important thing. For Smrt English, our training really bases on 2 things, a basic training and advanced training. And then we also build on professional development, and that's a partnership training. So what we do in the beginning, we make sure the teachers are really, really comfortable with the basics, because the teachers need to then teach those basics to their students. And with Smrt English, it's really only 4 steps and 4 pages, and you're done. And then we get into a more advanced training with teachers when they're ready, and we're always there to support the teachers along the way, no matter what. So we do that, and then we also offer professional development sessions. Could be a webinar like this, could be lots of different things. So there's lots of things that you're going to see at lots of different times with Smrt English training. We're doing lots of training right now for how to record your classes. We're doing lots of training with teachers right now for more advanced sessions on, it could be things like Google Forms and Google Classroom for teachers that had no experience. We did lots of training in the past on teaching teachers how to use blogs, but if your particular company had a different issue or problem that they were having, we would kind of tailor make something just for you. With virtual classes, one of the main things that you have to get trained on is whatever platform you're going to use. So Zach did mention a conferencing tool. So whichever one you find, there's usually tons of videos online, but it's also really important for those teachers to get in practice with one another. Practice, practice, practice. So 1 or 2 sessions practicing with each other, they get to practice to where all the tools are. That's a really important factor here, and when going in and showing the students what to do in that kind of virtual world as well. Most of the time with a virtual class training, just a couple of different things. Training for virtual classes, sharing your screen, muting a mic, turning on and off your camera, starting and stopping a session. Those are the kind of basic things you'll need to know for that. Moving into a class approach, when you're in a virtual world, things change a little bit. We're not in a face-to-face class, and so people don't see each other in the same way. You're not sitting across from someone. And so what we have here is this virtual world. If everything's virtual, all of the Smrt material for us is completely online. And so that's a really nice feature. And we want everything to be adaptable for that student to kind of be able to see, do, match what the teacher's doing, and be able to follow along, whether it's in that virtual class or outside of that virtual class. So it's really nice like this. Smrt English can be put up on the platform behind, just the way Zach's presenting now, and we can see his screen. And you're able to go like this with, as a teacher, I'm able to share anything with the students. Everything looks really clean, crisp, and that's a really important factor as well. So in that virtual world, when everything's virtual, choosing the right platform is very important. If you have a mixture of face-to-face and virtual, you can have a little bit more freedom in which virtual tool you want to use. So you can use maybe even a free virtual tool versus one that you have to pay for, because that face-to-face element you may have once a week or even once a month class that could be face-to-face eventually, and that could give you a little bit more freedom there. But you can also do that flipped method as well. So if you're doing a virtual class, you have the students review the material beforehand, with our platform and material, of course, they can go and they can log in at any time. They have access 24 hours, and you can flip that classroom. So during the session, when we're all together, we can go over questions, examples, issues, problems, questions that students got wrong, common errors, and we can do all of that in our online live session. You can always have the option to do project-based learning. So depending on your clientele, you could do project-based learning. So if you have young kids and things, you could be asking them in the virtual world to kind of show you projects that they're working on. If you have adult students, you could ask them to be doing nice presentations for you, or short speeches to one another in this virtual setting as well. So whatever you could do before, you could still do now. Guided self-study, making sure your students have really clear ideas and goals and targets, and then they can go off and study on their own, and then come back and have a Q&A or a discussion with them. Works really well also. Slide, please.
Yep, sliding.
Thank you. Course material, extremely important in a virtual class. You have to make sure that whatever material you're using comes off and shows really well. This is where the clients are going to judge you, your pupils, whoever they are, whether they're businessmen or they're elementary school students. If you're having an online academy and you're having virtual sessions, your material needs to look fantastic. So it needs to be clear and legible. So I'm a teacher and I always highlight everything. I have everything in crazy colors. That's my natural instinct, because a lot of teachers and professors, I believe, are really creative people. And so making sure you kind of scale back a little bit and choose material that is going to show well on screen and not just be something that's going to be photocopied in a handout. So those are really important things. Making sure the students have some access, that they have direct student access 24 hours so that they can log in when and where they need to. So your students may need to log in on their cell phone because they're away from the home and away from their device. Someone in their home might be using the device that they typically use, so they need to use a different one. So all of those, making sure that the students have access to the material. A lot of books and things, a lot of companies are really struggling now giving students access to the materials. They can't deliver the books. They have to find a way to get the material to the students. So they have to come up with really creative and actually quite subpar ways of handing that out to students in packages. Structured content, the next one, making sure that material that you're using has a structured content to build them up. If you're just picking and choosing things randomly, it doesn't help the student grow. So it's really important that you have a standardization or a structured content that increases their level at a certain scale. That could be IELTS scale, Common European Framework scale, doesn't matter. Make sure it has some sort of reference. Course material, make sure your teachers do have a little bit of autonomy. So a little bit of the availability to select and choose different things, but in that structure. So what we do at Smrt and what we do really well is we make sure that we have a core content for each and every level, and that we're able to make sure that the teachers can pick and choose within that, so that my learning style and my teaching style is different than the next teacher, and that's okay. We really encourage that, so that teachers are able to teach to the students that are physically and virtually in their classes. So it's really important that you're able to teach to the students in your own groups and in your own classes. And access to resources. We have to make sure that the teachers, when they are in their homes and they're teaching online, that they have access to tools and resources, and not just one photocopied textbook of a couple of pages here and a few websites there, and cutting and pasting and making a Frankenstein curriculum. We want to give them access to good quality resources. And so that's one thing you have to think about there with those course materials. So in Smrt, here's a little overview of what we would put together for a particular unit. Now, this is probably a lower level unit of, I believe, a 110, 115, which is an A1, A2 level. And so here what we have is everything separated by skill. That's a really nice feature, helps in the flipped classroom. If you have team teaching, to give teacher autonomy. So I can work on grammar one day, another teacher might be working on listening and speaking. This also works really well to really standardize what you want the focus of your school to be. Is your school a listening and speaking focused school? Is your school a grammar and writing focused school? What's your target? So those are really important things to kind of mull over when you're choosing material and choosing the right material for you. In our curriculum as well, so you saw we had everything separated by skill there. So in our grammar sections, we have embedded videos, which really help with those flipped classes as well, and those virtual classes. So the students can either watch these at home before they come to class. They can watch them in the class with the teacher. We could play this for you in a virtual session like this, or it could be something that I assign for homework after class. So lots of options here and giving teachers options. All of these videos, 3 to 5 minutes, short, concise, really effective videos where the teacher goes over a grammar target or a grammar rule, and then they give some examples to that as well. So these are about 3 to 5 minutes in these ones, and we do have some longer 1-hour lessons as well.
Thanks, Elena.
Hi, please.
So we're now into the structural side of kind of running a school. This is broken down into kind of the before the student enters the class, the placement test, the exercises, quizzes, and exams while the student's going through the learning process. I'm going to introduce this slide, and then I'm just going to kind of ask Jim and the guys at M Square Media if you guys want to do the poll now, or we can keep talking and do it. We're about at the sort of the halfway point here. That's up to you guys.
Yeah, I think we can do the poll now, and then you can start.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm launching a poll. This poll, we would request your active participation on the same. There are a few questions that we would get. We want to know more insight on what exactly is your feelings on it. So I'm launching the poll. Yeah. So I hope everyone is able to view the poll. So the first question is, are you currently teaching virtual or remote classes? If you can just tell yes or no. If you are teaching, you can just give a yes, or if it's still to be implemented or you're planning to or not planning to, you can just mention that. The second question is, how many instructors do you have? So if you've got an IELTS Academy or something, so how many instructors you have? Is it between 1 to 10 or 11 to 20 or 30 plus? You can just mention that. I hope everyone is able to view the pollings, because I don't see anyone polling. Okay, right. So you started. Yeah. So the third one is, do you have a learning management system? Any system that is there for teaching your students? You can mention yes or no. The fourth question is, when do you go back? Do you see your academy going back to full-size classes? So there are 4 options. You can just mention which is it. Are you looking for a blended one, or a full class size, or fully online, or is it a 50% class size that you're expecting? And the fifth question is, what is your biggest concern for the next the coming times ahead, the next semester, for example? And the options are having teachers train for potential virtual classes, or having material that can transfer from face-to-face to remote lessons, or having an learning management system that can access student data. So here are the options, and I think we've got 31% of them who have voted. So we'll just wait for that to be 50%. I would request all of your active participations on the same. Yeah. So I think we're done with the polling. We've got nearly 50% of them voting for the same. So I'm just ending the poll, and I'll share the results with you so that you can just have a view on the inside. Zach, I hope you are able to view the polling. Is it?
Yeah, no, it's on my screen. I was kind of wondering, I have it set up on 2 screens, so the poll's over here. I'm looking at my slides on another one. It's interesting to be able to see that. I wonder if for the other people, is the poll on their main screen so that it's on top of my slides? But that's just because this is only my second actual proper webinar. But it's interesting to see the size of the schools, and the concern here about having teachers train for potential virtual classes. I think that's an area that we're going to be able to help out a lot with. Elena and I have been doing this for about 5 months. So when COVID started in China, we started working with our partners there, and then we've slowly kind of worked across the world. And now all the information and all the experience that we've gathered, we're now able to kind of really perfect and polish, and we're going to be able to hand that off to the team in India and say, hey, this is what's happened kind of everywhere else in the world. Pull from our experience, ask us questions, because we've kind of been there and done that already. We've seen what can happen in these virtual classes. And that's really what built our slide deck here as well. I mean, we've seen some teachers in China that were just recording with their own cell phone and sort of broadcasting the teacher. They weren't even using the conferencing software. We've been working with really young kids, 7 and 8 years old, as well as adults. So please ask us questions, ask M Square Media questions. There's a lot of information sitting here in front of you. So I'm excited to work with everybody in India and help them out get into these virtual classrooms, or blended virtual and face-to-face classrooms, because I think virtual is going to play a big role in the new normal that we're all going to face here in the coming weeks and months. Okay, so all the nuts and bolts and the nitty-gritty part here of running a school. Obviously, we need to find out levels of students. We need to find out how their reading and their grammar and their listening and speaking skills are. Smrt is everything that you need. It's the learning management, it's the attendance, it's all the learning management system, but it also packs the placement test, the exercises, the quizzes, and the exams. So right from day one, when that student walks into your virtual interview with them, when they come to sign up, there's a placement test. We test their listening skills. We have a speaking component that you can do in a virtual meeting. It tests their writing, their grammar, their all of their English, so that you can figure out which one of our levels do they get slotted into. Obviously, there is a little bit of adjustment with that. They can be nervous in these virtual meetings. Maybe they can't see you. You can take that all into account. We do it here in Vancouver. Students arrive on a Sunday night at 2 a.m. We ask them to be at school at 6, and we're taking a test with them. We understand there's some adjustment with that. So you can always move students if you find after a week they actually are a little bit better than they are. Well, they can move up to the next level. That does go into the structure of your school. Are you having a fluid student body, or are you more like a university where they have a set cohort that starts in September and finishes in December? But we have the placement test, and that's all part of our teacher training as well, that we work with all the schools to have that sorted out. Tons of exercises in the curriculum. The teachers don't have to prep a lot of extra material. The grammars, the listenings, the readings, we have automated exercises that are embedded inside of our environment. So the student doesn't need to leave, and this teacher doesn't need to leave our website to go out and make an exercise and share a different link, or, get them to log in somewhere else. They get prompted. My teacher shared an exercise with me. I need to go through this as per their instructions, finish it in the next 10 minutes, finish it in the next 10 hours, however the structure of the class wants to go. They click submit, it gets automatically marked. The results go to the teacher, the results go to the student, and then they can use that as a teaching point in the next virtual class. They can go over the answers. They can look at how the class did as a whole. Everybody got question 2 wrong. Let's look at question 2. Why was everybody stumped on it? Oh, typing error, an understanding error. And they can really help the learning of each student as they go along with that feedback, because it's so quick with our exercises. Of course, we have to make it kind of formal. There's quizzes, there's exams. You guys may start asking questions about this, which is fine. We have these quizzes and exams. The quizzes are done for every unit. So in one of our levels, there's 12 units, so there's 12 quizzes, but we also have larger exams. The exams can be done every 4 units. They can be done at the end of the 12 as a level evaluation. Again, we can go into a lot more detail with each and every one of you, depending on how you want to structure your school. the brick and mortar school that we have here in Vancouver has a very fluid student body. They can change levels every month if they show the abilities of the next level. Some of our universities say no changing levels. You have to finish it between September and December again, and then you change levels in January. All of this is done inside of our platform. Again, no need to go out somewhere else. We have the listening, reading, grammar, and writing. The speaking component can be done in a video, or it can be done in a personal interview. And Elena works with the different teachers around the world and structures and helps them structure that however it fits in best with them. I
Absolutely.
think one of the things that, oh, yeah, sorry, I don't know. Did your hand go up? Yeah.
So that planning portion is really important. So whether it's with the exams, the quizzes, the placement test, I'll work with your administration and your academic directors, and we'll kind of work out a plan of what fits best for that institution. And that's why we keep our platform really flexible. And we have all these different options because we work with all these different types of clients. So if you're a certain type of school, we've probably seen that before, and we can work out a plan that will help you and your student body best. And so with the quizzes, the exams, the placement test, looking through the material and looking through all of the assessments, we'll be able to have a good scope of what your expectation is, what your needs are. We'll be able to plan with your academic team on what you want to do, what order you want to do it in. Some people want a placement test at the beginning and an exit placement test. So there's a lot of things that we can do with your administration to make sure that you get what you need. And that's one of the most important things too, so that your individual school culture remains kind of solid and it goes within your standards. So that's really important.
Thanks, Elena.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's okay. No. I again, we talked about this in the last one. I'm not used to giving set webinars where there isn't a lot of audience participation or a lot of audience questions. I give regular meetings where people don't interrupt, but they just ask a question and I feed off that because then I know what everybody's thinking or learning about. So it helps me give a better presentation because I'm just showcasing the things that I think are really important and that are really exciting. For me, as not a teacher, I think that I don't have to fumble around with a CD or a tape player inside the classroom. All my listings for the exams are built right into the questions. All my listings in the core course are built into there. So all I have to do is push play. In the core content, the students can re-listen to that stuff when they're at home. They don't have to be packing around a CD or a tape or whatever kids use these days. They can just hit that play button, and we've built content so it covers all the different accents. We have my accent of a West Coast Canadian person. We have East Coast Canadian and American United States teachers. We have Kiwis, we have Aussies, we have everybody in there. So the students are really learning a fluency in English. They can now go into that university campus and compete with all the other students and mingle with all the other students because now their ear is trained. I know there's a few companies out there that kind of target one accent. That's good, but what happens when you come up against a Korean English speaker or a Japanese English speaker and they may say a word a little bit differently? We want to make sure that those students are able to keep up with them. There is a question in the chat. I'll let Jim George grab it there, or the Q&A section. So the exams, the flexibility, we want to make sure that our curriculum can adjust to whatever style school you guys are running. Like Elena said, we work with private tutors. We work with small private ESL schools from 100 to 500 students. We work with large high schools of 5,000 or 6,000, and then our mega users are universities that have somewhere between 10 and 15,000 English language learners on campus interacting with their national teachers. So what I want to leave you guys with is really that Smrt is a turnkey solution for, oops, I changed the wrong slide. Smrt is a turnkey solution for any type of school. If you're a private academy, if you're working for, pathways into Canada, whatever it might be, Smrt has enough content for you to achieve your students and your goal and your school's goals for what they would like to do. Jim mentioned it earlier in the introduction, this pathway and this partnerships with Canada, the United States as well. But, you know, I like to talk a lot about Canada. I'm from Canada. The feedback that I get from universities and colleges that we work with here is that sure, an IELTS score is fine. It's a proof of your English language level. But sometimes when the students are on campus, they have a hard time mingling or interacting with the other students because they're used to this little bit more of a structured way of communicating. Smrt, like I said before, is really about this fluency. We want to make sure that the students are comfortable in any English environment, that they have the abilities, that they can write a high-level English essay for their teacher. They can be at the pub or on the street corner or in a cafe having a coffee with a friend and still be able to keep up with the conversation. So we want to make sure that they are fluent in the language. This isn't just about getting them to that IELTS 6.5, kicking them out the door and saying, hey, good luck in Canada. So we work with a lot of schools in Canada where these partnerships are really, really important. They know that a student who has studied Smrt offshore has these certain abilities. And this goes back to that transparency that I was talking about. Not only can the administrator kind of see how the student's doing with the attendance and all those sort of things, but I'm able to hand this transcript off to a partner school in North America and say, hey, this student, Jim George, did all these things. Here's all his work. Can he, you know, is this pathway into your school a possibility? There's a lot of changes coming on right now with the COVID. Schools are now talking about these partnerships a lot more in a different way than they talked about them 6 months, 8 months ago. So we're going to see a lot of new things. And, you know, with M Square Media and Smrt English, we're going to be in those conversations with the government organizations here in Canada, if it's Languages Canada or if it's with PTIB or whoever it is, working and advocating on the part of these students who want to come into Canada. And we want to make sure that that pathway is as easy as possible so that they can accomplish their goals here in Canada or in the United States. Jim, I see a lovely face there.
Yeah, so we've got a few questions. So the first one is that this is from Priyasha, and she asks that I run a small language school for OET, an English proficiency test for healthcare professional preparation courses. I wonder if you can provide a customized platform. And the second one is, she's continuing with that. We require a way of conducting live sessions, e-portal for videos, tests through, although I have all the contents. She's got the contents, so she wants to give the tests also.
See, yeah. Okay. So the one thing that we don't really do is that we're not a SharePoint. So uploading content is always a very private thing, basically based around a school, a teacher, or a classroom. However, this is interesting to me because if the content is there and it could work well for her, there is maybe something that we would be able to do, but we'd have to explore that a little bit. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for a half a second, and I'm just going to go into the platform to kind of show some of the things that we've done with other schools, other partners, to elaborate a little bit on her point, just so that we can see something that's a little interesting there. So I've just logged into the platform where, you know, the first page we see is the teacher cafe, or sorry, the Smrt Cafe, fun, interesting articles, things in English, but I wanted to go to the library. So in the library, this is where all the courses live. We have probably about 65 different courses. And the English for the Automotive is the one that I think kind of aligns here. This was a course that was built for an automotive university in Mexico. They had students who maybe weren't so scholastically inclined. They may have dropped out of high school, but were preparing for careers working in the automotive industry. Not super interested in learning English necessarily, but were interested in cars in the automotive industry. So what we did was sort of trick them by changing all of the content to focus around the automotive industry while still teaching all the same grammar and everything. So I think that this might be a way that we could work with those healthcare professionals and align a course that could look like that, given that it was the right numbers and, you know, all those kind of things that we could explore. So there are those opportunities with Smrt, with the right partners, that we can go down those avenues. This whole section of English for specific purposes, if it's aviation or business administration, the automotive stuff, that all kind of falls in line with what I think Pira is asking there. So it's not an open page that everybody can just throw up their stuff, but for certain people, we can work with them and do some really interesting things.
Yeah, thanks. The next one is, the next question is from Mr. Ranjit Menon. So he wants to know, is it possible to connect Smrt English with his existing LMS mobile app? And is there any possibility of sharing the API?
There is, and this is a new development in 2020 for us. Most of the time when we're talking to a school, we talk about this page that I'm showing you right now as the branding. So it's our URL with your school's logo. This happens to be the Canadian College of English Language that I'm logged into right now. This is good. It's not great. It would be better if I could use Ranjit's URL, and his company's called ranjit.com/English, and now it looks like his brand and everything's there, and then our content just exists there. But for the student, it's a seamless transition that they don't have to even go out to Smrt English. It's all lives under that one school's URL, and so that's what our team is now working with different schools to customize that. So yes, that is possible, Ranjit.
Yeah. So also, this is not a question, but this is just for a discussion point. So
Sure.
there are a few educational consultants who have joined in, who do train their students, and there are multiple of them who travel abroad, especially in English-speaking countries. So they have done their English requirement tests and all those that are needed, but yet they are not competent enough to go and face the new world. Like, for example, the accent, let's take an example of Canada, the accent in which the Canadians talk, they may not be able to understand what they talk, the others. So how Smrt English can help these type of students get prepared before they travel to a destined country?
Elena, that seems to be...
Yep, perfect. So within Smrt English, Zach had mentioned before that we have a lot of different accents and a lot of different types of content. So one of the things that we work on is fluency, and getting the students to not only memorize and to think in English, but also to be able to use it. And that's one of the big things, that no matter if they are doing a project, it's group work, they're working with partners in small groups, they're working with partners and team members in large groups. There's a lot of oral discussions that they have, debates that they have. There's a lot of different types of activities, whether it's speaking activities, vocabulary activities, and things like that. And there's a lot of projects in Smrt. So one of the things, whether it's for kids and youth or if it's for adults, there's a lot of active projects. We want them to not only research and write a summary on something, but we also want them to present that to the class so that they can actually do this not only alone, but they can do this with a partner. And so that's one of the things that we build their skills to go off to university and go off to working in the workforce. Because one of the big things, and like Zach had mentioned with the automotive group, that group in particular was also built so that those students can go and work in, I believe it was Volkswagen at the time, and they can be fluent and they can actually discuss things with other co-workers in English. So that was one of the key reasons why we even built that course in the beginning, was it was a pathway for these students, not only for communication and fluency, but also to make sure that they were confident enough. And that's one thing that the teachers work on with the students as well. And you can still do that in a virtual classroom. I'm always telling my students, don't be shy, ask a question, it's okay, make a mistake. A lot of students are very nervous to make a mistake and to not be perfect, especially in a virtual world. So it's really important that we have this nice, friendly environment, and that the virtual world is still like a classroom, so that students feel encouraged. And so one of the things that people can do to increase their fluency with the virtual world as well is have international guests pop on. And that's one of the things that a lot of schools are doing now, is having international guests pop on so that they have real active communication. And that can be done so much more easily now, because everyone's going to be trained on how to use a virtual classroom. And so all of these kind of small things that seem to be really difficult in the past are becoming really easy to do, and they're really necessary and needed, but they help that core fundamental goal that students struggle with, is finding their voice and being able to go into something and actually be ready for it. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Zach, also would request you to just show those pages wherein IELTS and TOEFL, on what modes it is being taught, so that our attendees can get a view on that.
For sure. I also wanted to just touch on the one that's up here, the Communications 145 class. This is a first-year college Intro to Communications class. This is another point that tags on to where Elena is that universities or colleges accept that IELTS 6.5, 7, whatever it is, but it's more about that use of language. This is a course that a student could take pre-arrival learning, or whatever we want to call it, while they're waiting in India for Canada to open up the doors to let them in. We'll take this class. Could it be given as credit? Maybe we could work on those partnerships. Is that advantageous for the student? Those are those kind of conversations that we're having now as we build out our academics and we work with more career colleges and colleges in Canada. We want to make sure that they're getting opportunities to have students come who have pre-studied. Maybe they can fast track things, whatever it might be. Those are those conversations, again, in that partnership and pathways side of things that we want to have talking with students, talking with institutions here on our side of the world. Jim, you wanted to see the test preparations. CALE, IELTS are the top two ones we do there. The TOEFL is an ITP, so it is one that we built out for a specific institution because they use the ITP TOEFL test. The IELTS preparation and the CALE preparation are the primary two preparation courses that we use. If everybody's not familiar with CALE, I kind of forget that. It's the Canadian equivalency to an IELTS or a TOEFL. It's a Canadian brand that was built by Paragon Testing and us. So it's another great one that students can use if they already know that they want to come to Canada and they need to fulfill a language requirement. My experience, most students are still in the IELTS preparation course because they may or may not know what country they're going to. Maybe they're throwing out a whole bunch of applications, and IELTS is that one that is internationally accepted. If you're applying to 2 schools in Canada, 2 in the United States, and 2 in the UK and or Australia, IELTS is the one that covers the most bases, I guess.
In our general exams, so from beginner to advanced, in all of our practice exams and final exams, there's a focus on TOEFL, FCE, and IELTS styled questions. And we do this on purpose so that to get students ready for those exams before they go what we call IELTS crazy. And so that's something that really happens to students before they're ready to take IELTS or TOEFL tests, and really to get that 6.5 or to that 6. They really struggle with the kind of 5.5 range when they want everything in IELTS or everything in TOEFL. And so what we do all the way from beginner through to advanced is we have those types of question styles embedded in the examinations all throughout, so that the students get this gradual practice all the way through. So it kind of really builds up those skills. So it's not just, I need all of this at once, which can kind of happen to students. I believe there is one question in the chat there.
Yeah.
Not sure if it was a question or a chat, but I'll address that. So Smrt goes in and out of the virtual classroom to the face-to-face classroom with absolutely no issues whatsoever. So our teachers, they really transitioned in almost one day. They had 1 hour session of practice on Zoom, and they went right into virtual classes. And as soon as the lockdown is over, they'll kind of transition back into their classrooms. They might do a little more cleaning, but the computers, teacher computers there. We have a TV on the wall. Students either bring their own devices, or if you still have a computer lab, you could use that as well. And it works the exact same way as opening up a textbook. You kind of just open up your computer.
Zach, can we just show a particular short video just showing this particular explanation that Elena had just given?
Sure. Yeah. And Elena, you just got Mohammed's question there, how it can be helpful for school teachers and students in regular classes post-lockdown, right?
Right.
That was that one. Okay. I just realized when you said chat, I grabbed the chat. On that, our schools in Vancouver, at least, are heading back to class next week, and it is going to be the new blended. They are going to have maybe 6 or 7 students in that face-to-face, while others are online, and they're going to be working that blended kind of model. So I think Smart's
awesome?
really, what's that?
So I just love that. It's so awesome.
Well, I think it's really key. Personally, my kids are going back to the classroom next week, and they're going to be doing some online stuff, and they're going to be all over here in some different places and stuff. So I think it'll be a really interesting thing, especially in the English language school group, because it's going to need to push this element of bringing that technology into those classrooms and being able to have it both ways, so that students can see the same content in the face-to-face class and have it in the virtual classroom as well. And students, I don't know, will be joining while they're in the other students are in the face-to-face, or they're doing it separately. But because it's a website, Smart's super flexible with this. It doesn't matter if you're doing, those remote classes from thousands of miles away, or if you are doing it in the face-to-face. We've been doing Smart in the classroom for 10 years. That was our primary business. And just because of this COVID, we've been getting into this virtual classroom. We were always meant to be inside the classroom, teacher with a display, students with computers or laptops or iPads or whatever it might be, computer labs. Now we're in this, now we're all spread out, and it still works really, really well. We're getting great results from students and teachers. So, Jim, you wanted to see a video of what a face-to-face classroom would look like. So this is one of our teachers at a brick and mortar school, starting up his class and talking a little bit about Smart. Let me know if I've messed up the audio or anything.
So as students arrive in the morning, I'm usually browsing the Smart Cafe, looking for any interesting topics to discuss with the class. We're using computers in class, but it's important that the class remains very interactive and engaging, with lots of group work and students working together in pairs. Once the students have arrived, I can take attendance in Smart. If a student arrives late to class, I can easily adjust his or her attendance in Smart. And once the attendance is adjusted, we can start class and I can engage the students in a discussion based on a topic from the cafe. The cafe is a good source of discussion material because it's current and updated daily. After some class discussion, students can open up the unit that we're on that week and they can start the lesson. And that's how a typical day in my class begins.
So for me, there's a couple really interesting points in that.
We have been getting a lot of requests from other schools at the lower levels.
That video is maybe only a couple years old, but you can see, at least I can see, there's been a lot of updates in Smart. they showed a Google document. We don't really use those anymore. We use embedded exercises. Just the layout of the website is different in that video than what I was just showing you and what I'm showing you now. And this shows the evolution and the constant improvement that we're doing, which comes from our users' feedback. Teachers and students are using the platform in a certain way and say, hey, this would be better this way. And we go, yeah, that's right. Okay, let's change this. Let's make it a little bit better. And so we're always working on making this the best product. And when you guys sign up with us in a month or 2 months, it might not look like this. It'll be better than this. So this is always an organic, growing entity that is constantly getting better for both the teachers, which is primary. My thing is that making sure that it's great product for the teachers, but also for the learners in your classroom as well.
That's where a lot of that feedback comes in really helpful as well. So feedback from partners and clients, and all of that feedback that comes into Smrt, whether it's related to the business side, whether it's related to the administration side, or to the material, or to the examinations and assessments, or the way we do teacher training, all of that feedback comes back to us, and we look at it, review it, reflect on it, and we make things better, because we're constantly changing, because we were grown from a school, so we're always constantly changing, adapting, getting better. And so that's the part of evolution of education.
Sure. Thanks. I think if any of other attendees do have any questions, you can post it in the Q&A session. We'll just wait for a minute or so to see if there's anyone else who's having any questions. In the meantime, can you just tell us, once a student is, for example, now there is a prospect student who is looking out to go to Canada, and their English levels, current English levels are not good. So what would be a change once they do a Smrt course, and then they completed, what would be the difference? Can you just give that comparison of once they enter and once they leave, so that our attendees get a broader perspective of what exactly is the outcome?
So not only would they advance a level, because a lot of times when you're working with the Smrt curriculum, you're using the cafe, you're using the live video, so you're taking your regular classes, but they're expanding their exposure to the language almost double, because they're in there exploring, they have access to different things, they have access to tools and resources, and they can kind of go out and explore on their own a little bit as well. So they may be doing an IELTS class with their teacher, but they're also looking at the cafe before they're doing their homework. They're checking out a live class and following that with the teacher. They're following the chat, they're listening, they're reading, they're interacting with a live class. And then even after that, what they're doing inside that classroom or with their groups, they're exploring technology. So that's the huge part here, is that I've had students who actively finished our program, went to university in Canada, and they were shocked. They were like, okay, why are we doing this essay this way? Let's do it like this. I can make this into a video essay. And their professors were amazed that they even knew how to do these things and that they didn't even think it was an option. And so they thought like, oh, doing an essay or doing a project like this, just an oral report, that's boring. How do we make this into a movie? How do we make this into a short film? How do we do this? And they're going out and doing these things because we've taught them since beginner, okay, this is how you make a YouTube video. This is how you post to it. This is how you make your lighting better. This is how you become a better digital citizen. And you're building this up over time. And suddenly this student goes to university with all the experience, all the knowledge, but they're going in with confidence. That's the difference. Technological confidence. And that's a game changer when you're in a university and it's not your native language. If you are able to have that type of confidence, fantastic.
Yeah, that would in fact be very helpful in that transition from one country to the other particular country. Very true. So
for me, sorry, Jim, I just want to, for me, that was the biggest part of what I wanted to leave on the DNA of Smrt. The English language learners were so different 10 years ago. And for me, it was about being the digital citizen, understanding how your email works, being responsible on social media, understanding that every post you make is part of your resume. Whenever I get a resume, I always Google search the person, I put them in on LinkedIn, I put them in on Facebook because I want to see that person. That's built in here as well to make sure that they are a responsible person. They understand all the levels of technology, because that can really what enhances learning the language is now you can go out onto this wild web and find things that you're interested in English, if it's cars or if it's music, whatever you want to do. And that's where you can really push your English language level. It's not just about preparing for that one examination and getting that one score. It's more of maturing as a learner and finding out what's the best way for you to learn.
And something that we like, if we have that in English, that helps us in improving the English automatically. So that's,
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. That intrinsic motivation. So when you're excited about something, you'll study it longer, or you'll listen twice or 3 times or 4 times. You'll gather all that information, you'll read about it, and you'll go to the next step and you'll want to talk to your professor about it. And so that's where things get really exciting, when students kind of start reaching out in their own repertoire of finding things and doing their own research on things, and really expanding what they can do.
So we've got another question. He's requesting if you can just click on the listening section.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I'm okay with it. So just before I can click on this, just the way this works is a lot of the IELTS content is free and public on the websites. So we can't repackage it and then sell it to people. So this is kind of the skeleton, and our IELTS training aspect of this, we would bring those other websites in. You would give more practice tests. This is the listening. Our audios are built in there. I just wanted to go back for a second because I wanted to talk about our numbers. The way that we run all the test preparations is based around those numbers that you see here, the 120, the 130. So we never want to put a person who gets 0 on our placement test in an IELTS preparation class. They're not ready. They need to study the lower levels till they get to that 120, and then they can take the test preparation class, because it really is about that test preparation. Elena?
Oh, sorry. So one of the things that's really important when we built, especially the IELTS platform, it was basically getting students to become more familiar with concepts, themes that they weren't familiar with before, not just test prep. We know that every student goes out and buys the brand new IELTS textbook. We know that. That's a fact. They're not going to stop doing that. They share those ones with each other. So what we encourage teachers to do is to use a core class and the IELTS class together, so that you have those practice tests that have the IELTS, TOEFL, FCE style questions in those exams as well. But they're also building up their knowledge of the themes and topics that are in there. One of the things that we notice when students come to Canada, whether they're taking an IELTS test or not, the one thing that they don't have any background knowledge of any of these themes that are in IELTS specifically. So we've picked 12 themes in IELTS about what the common themes are, because those students, they would come into class, they have things memorized, they have the process, they have the plan, they have the question styles, but what they don't really focus a lot of the time on is having the background knowledge. They may understand the words gender in the workplace, but they haven't had a discussion of it. They haven't actually talked to the professors and to other people that had differing opinions. And so that's what we try to build into a lot of these courses, building their vocabulary, building their background knowledge, and then building the skills out on those as well.
Sure. Done. So unfortunately, we are running out of time. We've already completed 1 hour. There's one question. So
yeah, I was just this franchise one, if you want to get to just before we close out here, Jim. I don't know if you want to read it out and answer it, or if you want me to answer it.
Yeah, if you can just answer, are you giving a franchisee for the online English proficiency course?
Right. So what we're talking about here is an English curriculum. We want to provide curriculums to institutions, private institutions, public ones, universities, colleges, anywhere there's an English teacher giving an English class to students. I'm not franchising the Canadian College of English Language. However, that did come up in the conversation I had today. This is about providing a replacement for the traditional textbook that's better than a traditional textbook, that's more versatile, that can be in a virtual class and in a face-to-face class if that's what we're going towards. It's about the English curriculum textbook.
Sure. Thank you. So we've got some really interesting questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So Zach and Elena would request your closing lines for this webinar.
No problem.
Elena, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Thank you all. I know that education is key. And so when you're thinking about virtual classes, think about your material and a layout that's going to work for you. You can get Zoom or Google Hangouts or anything like that anywhere. It's really important that your content is good for value for money for your students. That's what they're looking for right now.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for attending this. We on this panel have a ton of experience. Not only the last 10 years I've been doing this, but the last 5 months that I've been doing this specifically for the virtual COVID thing. Don't panic. Don't get lost in the forest. There's 3 or 4 really simple steps, and we can guide you through that. If it's from the conferencing tool to the platform to the training of the teachers to get comfortable with this. And that was always my part, is it was always about the teachers and making sure that they were comfortable getting on in front of that computer. So we can work with you on that, and don't worry, talk to us, ask us questions. Like Elena said earlier, just ask questions, because we have these answers for you and we can help you out no matter what it is.
Sure. So thanks, Elena and Zach, for this insightful presentation and answers to some very interesting questions. So this is a closing line that I would like to mention, that we at Smrt English India are super excited to introduce to you the Smrt English eSummit 2020 live, and would request you to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages to get more details. Also, you can visit the website, which is there above Zach's head. That's Zach's screen. That is www.smartenglish.com to get more details. So thank you for participating in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you so much.